kwa ukombozi wetu. Tujitoe wenyewe, tusimame pamoja kulinda uhuru na umoja wetu. Enyi Bwana na binti wa Afrika, mwili wa jua, mwili wa anga, tuifanye Afrika mti wa uzima. Tuungane sote, tuimbe pamoja, kuenzi shikamano hatima yetu. Tujitoe wenyewe kupambana pamoja, uhuru na umoja vitawale. Enyi Bwana na binti wa Afrika, mwili wa jua, mwili wa anga, tuifanye Afrika mti wa uzima. Tuungane sote na tujibidishe kutoa kilicho bora kwa Afrika, chimbuko la wanadamu, chemchemi ya utamaduni, tumaini letu wakati wa mafarakano. Enyi Bwana na binti wa Afrika, mwili wa jua, mwili wa anga, tuifanye Afrika mti wa uzima.
We talk about Africa, and we talk about Humanist TV Africa as one of those channels that bring Africa to you, but also bring meaning to television. We are a television that promotes human rights that others basically ignore, more so in Africa. We are a television that brings you stories that you will not hear elsewhere on social media platforms, but also we are a television that engages in promoting education, enlightenment, empowerment, as well as entertainment that you need to know in this kind of a century. Now, today, Humanist TV Africa is based in so many countries, including Uganda, Kenya. We are having offices in Nigeria and Ghana. We have offices in Zimbabwe and Zambia, Sierra Leone. We are also based in the UK and the US. We are still opening up offices elsewhere. We encourage you to please consider joining us as part of a moving team that is going to inform and educate our people out of poverty, out of ignorance, and of course empower them to do better for themselves. Today we bring you country profiles, and we are going to be talking about an African country. Some people think it is European, especially because it is so near to Europe, if I may say it that way. This Mediterranean country is a Muslim, call it Arabic country. We call Tunisia. Its capital is Tunis, and of course the name was derived from the colonizers of Tunisia. The French colonized it, the Ottomans colonized it for over 300 years, and Tunisia was once a monarchy. It's no more. Let us look at Tunisia, looking at the map and all the facts about it. Tunisia is the country we are going to be covering today. You see, the map of Tunisia is quite interesting. Red completely and white. Why are these guys wanting red? Is it the violence, or is it the togetherness? Is it the blood that connects human beings? And of course, the star, I told you, this country is purely Islamic. Now, Tunisia is a country that derives their name from the central, from of course the Latin suffix, from the French, that gave them this kind of word to mean to lay down, which means to lay down, encampment. It has a Berber root in each too. Tunisia was also used by the Romans. The Romans to fight at Tunisia. Basically, when we talk about northern part of Tunisia and Algeria, northern part of Algeria and parts of Tunisia, they used to say it was Tunisia. And these are so many years ago when the things were delayed there. Tunisia was once called Africa. Africa. It was once called Africa. Africa. In the early centuries of the Islamic period, the name in turn comes from the Roman word for Africa, and the Romans used to call it Africa. Africa. And that's how it got its name. Some people used to confuse Tunisia and Africa to mean the same. Remember the Punic Wars against the Carthaginians in 264 to 146 BCE. That is when this term Africa was being used to mean Tunisia, but also to mean Africa. That was the confusion. Now, when you look at this map, I'm showing you how the rich history of Tunisia is. We see, of course, the ancient sites in Tunisia. If you go to Tunisia today, you will find the sites that were built by Romans so many years ago. Romans built cities in Tunisia. Remember the Carthaginians and others? It will tell you the story of Tunisia. Now here we see Algeria as a neighbor of Tunisia. And of course, I told you that Tunisia has lots of proximity to the sea. And of course, Libya is quite there, which you call as Libya. Here, I'm giving you an ancient map of Tunisia, a map that shows you the tourist attractions, the cities of Tunisia, the major cities, the major areas of Tunisia, like Medina, Matmata, Dozi, and of course, Kebri. We have Tozel, Chebka, Sefira, and of course, Adoga, Maja, and others, as you can see. Some of the ancient cities, ancient sites you will find in Tunisia. Now we go to this map. This map tells you that, of course, the capital city of Tunisia is called Tunis. Tunis, up in the north, right there. And of course, we see the Magia River. We see the Mediterranean Sea, which gives Tunisia a rare connection to Europe. Tunisia becomes a gateway from Africa to Europe. Just like we saw in Morocco, Tunisia becomes the best gateway to Europe, thanks to the Mediterranean Sea right there. Now we see again Tunisia with the rest of the world. Now you can see, you can be in Tunis and you are looking at Venice, Italy. You are looking at Albania and Greece. You are looking at Barcelona and Spain. You are just in Tunis, but look what the proximity between Tunisia, Spain, Italy, and Albania. Now that's why some people used to think that actually Tunisia was in Europe. No, Tunisia is basically in Africa. It is on that tectonic plate that gives Africa the Africanness. Yes, the country is so near to Europe. You can see Malta is just near Tunis. Malta is just near Tunis. Greece, not far away. Italy, not far away. Spain, not far away. And of course, we see Barcelona and others. These capitals is not far away from Tunisia. So Tunisia became the gateway from North Africa to the rest of Europe. Now, Tunisia is a rich country in terms of minerals. I tell you, Tunisia has minerals, including the rare stones you talk about. Tunisia has all these minerals. It has gypsums. It has, of course, a bit of oil. Tunisia has iron ore. Tunisia has gold. And Tunisia has all these other minerals you talk about there. Look at that mineral map and you'll know what wealth is in Tunisia. Tunisia is a rich country in terms of wealth resources right there. It's not a poor country. In fact, one of the most performing countries in Africa in terms of economy is Tunisia. It's performing well on paper, of course. It's performing well on paper in terms of GDP. Tunisia has one of the most strong GDPs in Africa. Let us look at other maps and see the statistics of Tunisia. Population is about 12 million people. We shall check this one more about Tunisia. And of course, we see population per kilometer is about 75. Life expectancy is 70 years. And of course, life expectancy for females is 77 years there. And of course, death rate is about 7% right there. Female to male is 49 to 50. A bit of more females than males right there. Now, Tunisia, I told you that Tunisia is an Arabic country, a country for the Berbers, a country for the Tuaregs, a country for Arabs, of course, Arab Africans. The official language is Arabic. And of course, we see other languages such as Arabic French, English, and other languages. They speak Arabic as their main language. Of course, they speak a bit of French, and of course, Arabic French. The GDP of Tunisia is one of the best. Give me the GDP back. The GDP is one of the best, 46 billion US dollars. Their exports are quite many, and of course, imports are also quite many, which makes it a bit bad. The debt rate is threatening at 79%. Now, this is worrying because if you have a debt rate of that magnitude and you are importing more than your export, it becomes a problem. It becomes a problem in terms of economics. Let's look at other statistics. If you can see the screen, let us look at other statistics. Now, in terms of land use, 60% is urban land use and 65% is agriculture, which is also very good. Agriculture covers about 65%, 6,000, 100,000 and that kilometers. Forest covers about 5%, which is 7,395 square kilometers. Water covers about 5%, which is 8,250 square kilometers, and the rest is others. Railways are quite covering a big 19,750 kilometers, and of course over railway coverage there. And there are about 2 million vehicles that are registered in Tunisia. Tunisia is quite a big country, doing well in terms of economy. Let's look at other facts and statistics of Tunisia. Now, in Tunisia, we look at the most important cities of Tunisia. We look at Tunis. The capital city of Tunisia is also called Tunis. It has only 599,000 people, 500,000, almost 600,000 people stay in Tunis. Remember, population per the data I have here is about 12 million people, but almost 600,000 stay in the city. Not so much of population in the city. There are other cities such as Safax, which is in the central, Sousse, which is in the central, Caron, which is in the central west, Gabes, which is in southeast, Bizerte, northeast, Midon, Adriana, Kathreni, and others. These are cities, and I'm showing you how many people stay in these cities. Let us look at other facts. In terms of democracy and political indicators, Tunisia hasn't been doing so well, I should tell you, because sometimes people have said it's well governed, but sometimes people have said it is badly governed, given the many uprisings. But democratically, we can say, yes, they have been trying to have democratically elected leaders, but sometimes they come and mess up things. Remember the Arab Spring? The Arab Spring, when people began burning themselves to death, and governments changed throughout the Middle East. And of course, the North Africa, many governments were affected because of the bad politics in Tunisia. When people began celebrating victories, of course, it led to change of regimes elsewhere in some countries in North Africa. And Tunisia was a catalyst of sort where people began demonstrating and governments began falling in the rest of North Africa, especially Arabic countries in the north of Africa. Let's look at other statistics of Tunisia there. Now, Tunisia has, of course, trade agreements with COMESA, the Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa. It has, of course, trade agreements with the GAPTA, Great Arab Free Trade Area. It has agreement with OPEC, Organization of the Arabian Petroleum Exporting Countries. Remember, Tunisia, one of the leading oil exporters in the world, is Tunisia, one of the leading. They has oil, they're exporting oil, they are getting so much money. Alliances, Tunisia is part of the African Union, Arab League, and the Non-Aligned Movement, among others. Just look at other facts about Tunisia. And of course, Tunisia, I should tell you, has some of the best sites in the world. If you want to go and see a beautiful country, go to Tunisia. It has some of the best harbors, the best beaches, the best landscapes, world views, eye-catching views, a very relaxed environment. you will find it in Tunisia. Look at those photos, and you'll agree with me that Tunisia is really beautiful, really beautiful. Tunisia was once ruled by the Ottoman Empire for over 300 years. The Ottoman occupied Tunisia, then the French colonized it, and later on, and at the Congress of Berlin in 1878, there was an arrangement to give Tunisia to France. Tunisia was taken over by France at the Congress of Berlin in 1878, and Tunisia became part of the French. Now, Tunisia was under the French protectorate from May 12th, 1881. It became a protectorate from May 12th, 1881, under the French to March 20, 1956. So the French took over Tunisia effectively as a protectorate from the 12th day of May, 1881, and up to March 20th, 1956, when Tunisia fought back to get the independence. Remember, Tunisia had a monarchy of sorts. Tunisia has so many good buildings that were built by the Ottomans, by the Romans, and others. Tunisia was conquered by the Romans for so many years, by the Ottomans for about 300 years, and by the French from 1881 to 1956. So you can imagine Tunisia has always been under occupation for a long time. But it had monarchy also. In other words, there were also some kings in between. In January 1846, Ahmad Pasha Bey promulgated a decree to permanently abolish slavery 2 years before the abolition of slavery in French colonies in 1848. Remember, Tunisia is one of those countries in the world that abolished slavery, even when America was still having slavery. Tunisia is the first Arab country to abolish slavery. That is a landmark. And that was in 1846 January. 1846 January, Ahmed Pasha Bey, a man who lived between 1837 to 1855, abolished slavery in Tunisia before even the Americans abolished slavery. Tunisia had abolished slavery. It became the first Arab country in the world to abolish slavery. That is the history for Tunisia. Even when we see protests in Tunisia today, people asking for independence, people saying there is racism, Tunisia had a history of abolishing slavery in 1846. Even before the American government thought about it, Tunisia was abolishing slavery. And indeed, it fought through that. Now, when they got the independence and fought it, the process took place between 1952 to 1956. Tunisia was fighting for their independence from the French, and it was led by Habib Bourguiba, their leader there. And of course, as the monarchy, it was ruled by Husainid dynasty. The Husainid dynasty that ruled Tunisia as a monarchy from 1705 until the establishment of the French protectorate of Tunisia in 1881. There was a monarchy. There were kings in Tunisia from 1705. It was called the Husainid dynasty. Husainid dynasty ruled Tunisia from 1705 under the monarchy until when the French took over Tunisia in 1881. Until they got their independence later on. Of course, Tunisian monarchy was there until the 25th day of July 1957, when the monarchy was abolished. The monarchy was abolished in Tunisia on 25th July 1957 and became a republic. Tunisia is known for protests. People in Tunisia are the most democratically oriented guys. They're Arabs, but they will take on streets and protest every nonsense the government does in Tunisia. Guys in Tunisia protest against their presidents. They are always on streets. They, in fact, burn themselves to death. They do everything to show their governments that we don't want the way you rule us. It is said that Tunisia, perhaps, is among the most well-democratic governments in the Arab world. That when we talk about the Arab world, Tunisia comes so near when we talk about democracy, because Tunisians always go on street and protest. You cannot see it in Saudi Arabia. You will never see it in Jordan. You will never see it in Yemen. You will never see it in Iraq. You will never see it in Turkey, call it Turkey. But in Tunisia, people go on street and demonstrate. You don't see it anywhere in the Arab world. These guys in Tunisia go on the street every time and demonstrate and demand fair leadership. As we speak today, Tunisia Of course, had the presidents, I will take you back. One of the presidents of Tunisia was a man called Habib Bourguiba, who became a president for 30 years. The man ruled them for 30 years. Habib Bourguiba, the first president then. The second president was a man called Ben Ali Ezineng. Ben Ali Ezineng, who ruled Tunisia for 23 years, from 1983 to 2011. For 23 years, their second president ruled them. Tunisia has been protesting against racism, Black Lives Matter. Whenever black people are killed in Tunisia, we have been seeing Arabs going on the streets to protest and say Black Lives Matter. You don't normally see this in other Arabic countries. You will not see this in Saudi Arabia. When Arabs come on the street to say Black Lives Matter, you don't see it in Saudi Arabia. You will never see it, at least not in this year. But in Tunisia, when they kill Arabs, when they kill black people, Arabs come on the street and say Black Lives Matter. You always see it in Tunisia. So Tunisia is ranked among the most democratic countries among the Arab nations. That is a fact. Now we see that after Ben Ali left in 2011, he had ruled them for 23 years. Another man came to power called Beji Caid Essebsi, who ruled for 4 years. And today, Tunisia is ruled by a man called Kais Saied. Kais Saied, who is ruling Tunisia, is the president of Tunisia. Was born on 22nd February 1958. Is a retired professor of law, and he has been ruling them from October 2019. It explains why actually Tunisia is a bit more democratic. Tunisia has a law professor leading this country. So because the law professor, I do believe he understands the law. That's why you see Tunisians are able to always protest. They are the guys on the streets and say, we want better leadership. You don't see such demonstrations in other Arabic countries. Mention one where you see people, Arabs going to the street and demonstrate. You don't see it. Why? It is autocracy in some of those countries. In Tunisia, whether you want it or not, the people of Tunisia, Arabs or blacks, will go on the streets and protest, and openly protest and say this is wrong. Tunisia is a good country. The most beautiful beaches, sand dunes, the Mediterranean country that is so near to the Western world is Tunisia. It has oil. It has all these minerals and has a well-intentioned, focused people in Tunisia. It is Tunisia today, one of the most enticing, most attracting countries in Africa is Tunisia. How about visiting them? You can visit them, but be cautious to be security alert in Tunisia because of some insurgencies and terrorist attacks once in a while. See you in the next one.